What's going on, guys? It's Fight Season MMA, and today I want to talk about Tom Aspinall's road to becoming the greatest heavyweight inside the UFC. Now, nothing is official yet. Everyone has such high standards and stakes for Tom Aspinall currently. Everyone understands that he is one of the best prospects the UFC has ever seen in their heavyweight division. He has gone out there and absolutely smothered all of his opponents inside the octagon. He has one loss inside the UFC, and that is to Curtis Blaydes after he tore his MCL about 20 seconds into that fight. He eventually rewrote that loss, defeating Blaydes at UFC 304 in 1 minute flat. But I kind of want to talk about today what Tom Aspinall really has to do to become the UFC's greatest heavyweight, because the heavyweight division's GOAT in Stipe Miocic actually doesn't have that many title defenses. Yes, he is a great fighter, but there was so much going on around in that heavyweight division that truly I think that Tom Aspinall will have the opportunity to come in and swoop in, and I kind of want to lay out his plan on how he could definitely do so. But if you guys enjoy the UFC content, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. That is the best way to help the channel grow. And while you're down there, please turn on the post notifications, just so you guys are always fully notified when UFC content releases every single day. But without further ado, let's jump right into the video and kind of discussing Tom Aspinall's road to becoming the greatest UFC heavyweight of all time. Now, Tom Aspinall's heavyweight road to GOAT status is already started. He has already started creating his legacy for himself, stepping in there and beating Sergey Pavlovich, one of the scariest fighters in the UFC currently. Yes, he did lose to Alexander Volkov at UFC Saudi Arabia, but guess what? He was still the number 2 ranked UFC heavyweight at that time, and he went and absolutely knocked him out cold 1 minute and 7 seconds into that fight in Madison Square Garden, UFC 295 last year, and one of the craziest events we have ever seen, with Alex Pereira and Yuri Prochazka, and then, those two stepping in on 2 weeks' notice. Incredible fight, incredibly massive legacy move for Tom Aspinall, showing that he will fight anytime, anywhere versus anyone. Then he already came up here and beat Curtis Blaydes in 1 minute flat at UFC 304. Absolutely just kind of rewriting that loss, kind of like I said earlier, considering that he tore his MCL in that first fight. But he has already started paving his path and his legacy back to the UFC title. He really hasn't had a trouble besides that Curtis Blaydes MCL tear. I think it was in July of 2022 or June of 2022, some number around there. But really, Tom Aspinall has started and created himself a really nice base for that. So what do I think that Tom Aspinall needs to do? Now, I do think the heavyweight division right now isn't at its strongest point. It might be the weakest division currently inside the UFC. But what a lot of people don't remember is that Tom Aspinall has actually beat a lot of these contenders who are very, very good. Now, the one name that he hasn't beat that I do think is a very great star on his resume, and was the person that Jon Jones beat coming back to the UFC, that being Ciryl Gane. And I do think that Tom Aspinall versus Gane is a very favorable fight for Aspinall, kind of for the same reasons like Jon Jones. But I do think ultimately Tom Aspinall just has to be stacking up wins upon one another. And if he can do that, no matter how good the competition is, it truly makes him undeniable for being the UFC heavyweight GOAT. And I think that that's something that really is a big thing for a lot of these different individuals, like Aljamain Sterling in the bantamweight division. I think he's the bantamweight GOAT, unquestionably, no matter who else wins at this point or whatnot, just because he made himself undeniable by winning titles and defending titles. Yes, he won the title off of Peter Yan illegal knee, but he then went out and beat Yan. He dominated TJ Dillashaw, beat Henry Cejudo, and yes, I know that he lost to Sean O'Malley, but that is still a good championship reign in the bantamweight division. So I do think that Tom Aspinall has the ability to do that too. Also, I do think that Tom Aspinall, the biggest thing for Aspinall's legacy right now, I think would be beating one of these guys going out, because I think that that would 100% kind of transfer the stardom to him, if that makes a little bit of sense. Stipe Miocic is kind of the household name inside the heavyweight division. Jon Jones is the UFC household name. So this fight is kind of putting two of the biggest household names. It's going to be a massive pay-per-view for the UFC, even if that card is incredibly disappointing, which we can get into another video. But truly, I really do think that UFC 309 is going to be a massive pay-per-view, having Charles Oliveira versus Michael Chandler as the co-headliner, Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic. But whoever wins that fight, I do think needs to go and fight Tom Aspinall. And I think that that would be the smartest thing for the UFC to do, to not only give their kind of past champion or past GOAT the ability to fight the upcoming prospect in the division. Worst case scenario, if the prospect loses, you can say he lost to one of the greatest of all time, and it only amplifies their stardom. And if Tom Aspinall goes in there and beats one of these GOATs, that 100% solidifies him as the future of the UFC division, is only going to give him so much more praise going forward every single day in the heavyweight division full. So I truly think that that would be a great thing for Tom Aspinall and the UFC organization to do. In my opinion, in Tom Aspinall's kind of next fights, what should he really do to go get that title? Because I do think that he should fight the winner of Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic, and I don't know how good of a fight that's going to be. I don't know if these two are going to retire afterwards, but if it was me, plan A would be going on that track and then fighting the winner of the Cyril Gane-Alexander Volkov fight. But after that, I do think that winner, if Jon Jones and Stipe Miocic retire, I do think that winner of that bout should be at the forefront of the next title shot. I know Cyril Gane's coming off kind of a win last September, not this year, but the year before, headlining UFC Paris, and a good win over Sergey Spivak. Not a great fighter, but someone who is notable and inside the UFC heavyweight division. And Alexander Volkov, amazing win over Sergey Pavlovich, in my opinion. That's kind of the number one contender fight in the heavyweight division right now, and I do think that they would probably turn them around pretty quickly to go fight Tom Aspinall, possibly in like April of next year or maybe March of next year, some number like that. But I do think that would be the adequate fight to be made. And ultimately, I do think that would be the thing for Tom Aspinall to do. I think he's going to fight in March or April of next year, regardless of who the opponent is. I think they're going to turn him around quickly if Volkov and Gane are the winner. But if Jon Jones and Stipe Miocic are that, I could see them doing that fight in Vegas, doing that fight in Miami, do something like that at that time. But I truly do think that if he can get a win over someone like that, he can kind of beat another one of these top guys, possibly even beating Alex Pereira in the heavyweight division. I would probably say you beat Cyril Gane or Alexander Volkov, and then you beat Alex Pereira, and that already makes you one of the greatest heavyweights on planet Earth. Beating someone like Curtis Blaydes, defending your title once, beating Sergey Pavlovich, who's an absolute killer in there, going in there and beating Cyril Gane, that's 2 defenses of your title. And your third defense would be one of the greatest kickboxers in UFC history, going up to challenge for a third consecutive title. Alex Pereira would be the first person to possibly fight and win in the UFC's middleweight, light heavyweight, and heavyweight division. And I think if Tom Aspinall was able to stop that from happening, I think that would 100% just throw him into one of the biggest spots of stardom the UFC has right now. And I do think that Tom Aspinall's kind of camaraderie and his kind of himself going out there and doing what he needs to do with his YouTube channel and being more invested with fans and kind of being more in the community, I think is going to help him a lot. And truly, I do think that Tom Aspinall right now has the opportunity to become one of the best heavyweights the UFC has ever seen, just off his sheer intangibles that he possesses. Like I said, Tom Aspinall, great fighter, one of the best prospects the UFC has ever seen, and I think the power and the goal of him becoming the best UFC heavyweight is fully in his hands, and it's only up to whether he wants to do it or not. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Fight Season MMA, and please let me know if you are this highly on Tom Aspinall, if you think the heavyweight division is kind of simultaneously weak and Tom Aspinall so good, of why this could possibly propel him to being the greatest heavyweight on planet Earth inside the UFC. I know the UFC has had some great heavyweights, Chuck Liddell, you got obviously Jon Jones now, Stipe Miocic, Daniel Cormier. There's been a lot of champions inside this UFC heavyweight division, but truly I do think that Tom Aspinall is just levels above these guys. He moves like a welterweight. He has great jiu-jitsu and grappling. He is the all-around full package, and I truly think that is something that is absolutely incredible to see, considering that he is so unbelievably good. And I think that genuinely Tom Aspinall is a beast of a human being, and genuinely I think that he's going to go in there, he would beat either Jon Jones or Stipe Miocic. I think he beats Volkov again or Cyril Gane, and then whoever you put in front of him, whether that's Alex Pereira or someone else in the heavyweight division, I think he beats them. I think Tom Aspinall, there's not one singular fight in the UFC that he would lose at this point, not for size, not for any other reason. I think Tom Aspinall is just that good. Well, if you guys enjoy the UFC content, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. That is the best way to help the channel grow. And while you're down there, please turn on the post notifications, just so you guys are always and fully notified about future UFC content releasing every single day. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you guys very soon with more UFC content and news.